Every morning, when I enter Ridge, the smell of motor oil greets me like a comforting, familiar handshake. I've dedicated 15 years of my life to AutoWorks, a shop that's more than just a garage. It's a haven, a place where I can breathe. While engines hum like old friends, I'm not just a mechanic here. I'm the one who knows these machines' secrets, the one who puts them back together, piece by piece. The man who transformed this place from a dilapidated shed into a business that keeps half the town's cars running. My grizzled, oil-stained hands move with a rhythm, like an artist's. Tightening a nut, slipping a wrench, it's instinct. At least to me. But to my wife's family, I'm nothing like that. That morning, I was elbow-deep in a V8. Just a guy in dirty overalls. The one who never really belonged in their polished, picture-perfect world. It was the kind of work that makes you forget the time. I was wiping my hands on a rag when the door chime rang. I looked up, expecting a customer. But it was my wife. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, clutching her purse like it was holding her together. Pale face. Eyes avoiding mine. I knew something was wrong before she said a word. "It's about my sister's wedding," she whispered. She doesn't want you there." I leaned against the workbench, rag still in hand. Her words hit like a backfire in a quiet garage. "She thinks you'd embarrass them," she stammered like she was trying to soften the blow. "You know how she is?" I nodded, slow and deliberate. It wasn't the first time they'd looked, down their noses. At dinners, I'd been the outsider, tolerated only because I was her husband. Whenever I brought up the shop, I saw her father's tight smile, the way the air shifted. They didn't understand, didn't want to. To them, I was a blemish on their perfect portrait. And now, her sister had drawn a line in the sand. I turned to my wife, hoping, just hoping, she'd say something different. That she'd stick up for me. But she just looked at the ground. Her silence said everything. I tossed the rag onto the bench. "Guess I'll stay home then," I said, turning back to the engine. She hesitated, like she might say more, but she didn't. The door chimed again as she left, and I just stood there, listening to the hum of the shop. The engine in front of me needed a new timing belt, an easy fix, but my hands weren't steady. Her words echoed in my mind. Embarrassment. It wasn't new. I'd always known her family thought I wasn't good enough. But hearing it come from her, from my wife's mouth, cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Maybe I tightened a bolt harder than I needed to. Maybe I needed to feel something I could control. I'd been putting up with their judgment since the day we got married. I still remember her father pulling me aside and asking, "Are you sure you can take care of her?" Like I was some stray she'd decided to clean up. I laughed. It off then. Said I loved her, and I did. Still do. But now I was standing in my own shop, my business, thinking about her sister's wedding, about being told I wasn't welcome. It was only noon. The day had just begun, but it already felt heavy. A busted transmission waited in the next bay. Invoices stacked high on my desk, and yet my mind kept circling that morning. Work had always been my refuge. When life got messy, I came here. The clang of metal, the logic of engines. Machines don't judge. They just need someone to understand them, to put the pieces back in place. I grabbed a wrench, trying to shake off the sting. But her sister's words clung to me like the ache in my knuckles. She never liked me, said I. Was too quiet. Too rough around the edges for her world of prestige and press photos. And now she thought I wasn't worthy to stand in the background of her wedding. I wondered what she'd told her fiancé, what version of me she'd painted, to justify keeping me away. Probably the guy with oil-stained shirts and calloused hands, a man who'd ruin the aesthetic. And honestly, the thought almost made me laugh, but this time it wasn't just her sister. My wife said nothing, and that was what stuck. After I finished the timing belt, I walked to the sink, scrubbed my hands with industrial soap, watched the black streaks. Swirl down the drain, I could fix cars. People were harder, especially the ones you love. I dried my hands, glanced at the old wedding photo on my desk. We were so young. I believed love could bridge any gap, even one between two worlds. I smiled in that photo like I owned the world. Then the phone rang. It was a customer asking about their pickup. I answered calmly, professionally. This was my domain. No one here could make me feel small. Still, the ache didn't fade. That night, I sat across the table from my wife. The clink of my fork on the plate was louder than it should have been. She picked at her food, glanced at her phone. Neither of us spoke. Chewed slowly, pretending this silence wasn't heavy. But her sister's wedding hovered like a storm cloud. She had broken the news to me that morning, then left me to carry it. Finally, I set my fork down. "Are you going to say anything about it?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She sighed, tucked a lock of hair behind her ear. "It's not me. Okay? It's my sister. She's marrying this powerful man, and she wants everything perfect. She doesn't think you fit in." The words weren't new, but hearing them from her, from my wife, still hurt. I crossed my arms, leaned back in the chair, thought about that fiancé. Some manufacturing billionaire with a guest list full of politicians and tech executives. I guess I was the peasant ruining their royal court. "I'll just stay home," I said. "Pretend it never happened." She winced. "I tried talking to her," she said. "But you know how she is. I didn't want to make it worse." I stared at the wood grain on the table, letting it blur. For years, I'd played the quiet husband. Swallowed their comments, endured their cocktail parties. I did it for her. But tonight, I didn't know if she was still on my side. I stood, picked up my plate, took it to the sink. "I won't beg to attend a wedding," I said quietly. "But you had the chance to defend me, and you didn't." I didn't want to argue. But I couldn't ignore it either. She murmured something behind me, her voice barely above the running water. Her day, sure. But what about ours? The vows we made? I scrubbed the plate harder than I needed to. Focused on the suds, not the sting in my chest. Honestly, I didn't care about the wedding. I would have gone, clapped politely, and come home. But being told I wasn't good enough, that stung. I dried my hands, walked to the garage. The air was cool, heavy with the smell of metal and oil. I flipped the light, let it pour over my tools, each one resting where it belonged. I picked up a socket wrench, rolled it in my palm. Sometimes people don't want to see your worth, but I built a life without their approval. Ridge Auto Works wasn't just a garage. It was mine. My pride, my peace, my purpose. And they didn't know something else, something even my wife didn't fully understand. I had another business, CR Dynamics. What started as side work fixing cars had grown into a consultancy.